3 days after our divorce, my ex-wife showed up on my doorstep clutching her luggage, looking like a stray puppy. "Honey, I'm bankrupt," she whimpered. "Please, for the sake of the old times, let me crash here." I gave her a temporary place to stay, but why does she keep getting so physical with me? While other 25-year-olds are drowning in the sweetness of new love, I've already achieved the title of divorcee. I hadn't dared to tell my parents yet, fearing they'd break my legs in a fit of rage. I was currently racking my brain for a plausible explanation when the doorbell rang. Shaking, I went to open it, terrified my parents had caught wind of the news and were here to enact some justice. Instead, it was my ex-wife. Eleanor looked exhausted. Her clothes were rumpled, her dress was stained with coffee, and the hair she usually kept in a perfect, sleek bun was a mess. The aura of the alpha female CEO was completely gone. And honestly, she wasn't just anyone. She was the CEO of a listed company with assets worth tens of billions. "Did you get mugged?" I asked. Knowing her obsession with cleanliness, I couldn't imagine her tolerating this state of disarray. Eleanor gave a sheepish smile. "I'm bankrupt. Can I stay with you for a while?" 10 minutes later, Eleanor was at my dining table, head down, inhaling a bowl of noodles. Judging by her speed, she hadn't eaten in days. "Is this for real?" "Bankrupt." I sat across from her cautiously, trying not to bruise her fragile ego. "All of it. The mansions, the luxury cars, the yachts." She put her chopsticks down and let out a heavy sigh. "Collateralized. All of it." She pulled out an empty wallet and laughed at herself. "I don't have a penny left. If you don't take me in, I'll literally be sleeping under a bridge with the homeless tonight." She looked at me expectantly. "You'll let me stay, won't you? For old time's sake." I hesitated. Who gets divorced only to have their ex-wife move back in 3 days later? It defies every rule of a breakup. Logically, we should have been dead to each other by now. The truth is, Eleanor and I didn't marry for love. We were forced into it by our grandmother. I had spent years taking care of the old lady, attending to her every need with total devotion. Her final wish was for her precious granddaughter to marry me. It was the kind of dramatic, cliché soap opera plot that leaves you speechless. Actually, Eleanor hadn't protested the marriage at all. She had agreed almost instantly. After our wedding, although we weren't physically intimate, she treated me better than anyone ever had. Whether it was delicious food, a premium drink, or some new form of entertainment, she never once forgot to include me. Thinking back on this, my heart softened. "All right," I nodded. "You can stay here for the time being." Eleanor, who had been staring at me with such longing and hope, watched her eyes light up the moment the words left my mouth. Then, "Thank you," she whispered. But by nighttime, a problem arose. The apartment I rented only had one bedroom and one living room. While it was perfectly spacious for a bachelor, it was a different story with two people. I looked at Eleanor awkwardly. I hated sleeping on the floor and was far too accustomed to my own bed. However, I couldn't exactly let a former CEO sleep on the hardwood. Even if she was bankrupt, she was used to a life of luxury. How could she endure such hardship? My gaze drifted toward the large, 2-meter bed in the bedroom. Eleanor seemed to read my mind. Being surprisingly considerate, she took her pillow and headed for the sofa. That night, as I lay in bed scrolling through the news, I saw a headline about the Sterling Group. I clicked on it immediately. 10 minutes later, I climbed out of bed, threw on a shirt, and went out to the living room to find Eleanor. I let out a long, silent sigh. She really was bankrupt. It was a disaster, truly pitiful. Not only had the company declared bankruptcy, but all her personal assets had been liquidated or used as collateral. She had likely even been harassed by angry employees, pelted with eggs, or splashed with coffee. No wonder she smelled a bit off when she first walked in. She was this miserable, and I was making her sleep on the couch? Am I even human? The living room was dark, but the curtains were open, allowing the moonlight to flood the room. Eleanor was standing on the balcony, staring off into the distance at the night sky. Her silhouette looked incredibly lonely and still. She had fallen from the highest peak into the deepest abyss. A fall like that was monumental. Someone with a weaker spirit might have been standing on a rooftop contemplating an end to it all. My soft-heartedness flared up again. I started. Eleanor turned around. She had already showered, her long black hair cascading over her chest. A few damp strands clung to her forehead. Her deep, dark eyes were like stars in the midnight sky, impossible to see through. My gaze drifted lower. She was wearing a silk V-neck nightgown that revealed her delicate collarbone and smooth, porcelain skin. Don't look, I thought, quickly averting my eyes. It's a bit cold tonight, I said. The sofa is too hard, and you might catch a cold. How about we squeeze in together? Eleanor paused, looking back at me with uncertainty. Do you mean we share the bed? My face turned beet red, and I was so tense I couldn't even find my voice. Yeah, I mean, we just share the bed, use separate blankets, and just talk. Don't get the wrong idea. As soon as the words left my mouth, I wanted to kick myself. What on earth am I saying? Suddenly, I heard a faint, smothered laugh. I looked up to see that Eleanor had regained her serious composure. She nodded. In that case, I accept. She picked up her pillow and brushed past me, her footsteps notably light and cheerful. I scratched my head, feeling like I had just walked into a trap I set for myself. However, Eleanor's good mood didn't last long. She stared at the long body pillow I had placed right down the center of the mattress, her lip twitching. Dante, what is this supposed to be? I clear my throat. I'm a restless sleeper. I'm afraid I'll kick you in the middle of the night. So I thought a barrier would be safer. My eyes darted around the room. In reality, I wasn't afraid of kicking her. I was afraid of my own lack of self-control. I was terrified that my basic instincts would explode and I'd do something reckless with my ex-wife. I had everything a man could need, except for a shred of willpower. She let out a soft smirk and lifted the barrier pillow out of the way. Her almond eyes narrowed slightly as she leaned in close to me. Dante, are you afraid of kicking me? Or are you afraid of having intentions? I leaned back, my throat going bone dry. Do I look like that kind of guy to you? She laughed softly. Of course I trust you. And she meant it. After all, we had been married for quite a while, and she had never once initiated intimacy with me. She clearly had no interest. If it hadn't been for the rumors that her first love was returning from abroad, I wouldn't have acted. I was terrified she'd impulsively dump me, so I decided to strike first and be the proactive one in the relationship. That's why I asked for the divorce. When I brought it up, she didn't even flinch. She agreed the very next day. Looking back, our marriage was rushed, but our divorce was a literal sprint. I felt sorry for the clerks at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Just sleep, I grumbled, hugging my pillow and turning away, closing my eyes to fake sleep. Eventually, the fake sleep turned into the real thing. In the middle of the night, I woke up needing to use the bathroom. When I opened my eyes, I realized the body pillow in my arms had been replaced by Eleanor. I was holding her tight against my chest, her scent completely enveloping me. She was facing me, eyes closed, breathing steadily in a deep sleep. The small night light was still on, allowing me to see her long, thick eyelashes clearly. It's hard for a person to resist a moment of curiosity. Unable to help myself, I reached out and gently brushed her lashes. Startled by my own boldness, I quickly pulled my hand back and tried to slowly retract my legs. But just as I attempted to carefully unprying her hand from my waist, she opened her eyes. Our gazes locked. I was so embarrassed, I felt like my toes were trying to burrow into the floor. We stared at each other for 5 straight minutes before I stumbled over an excuse. Sorry, I'm a restless sleeper. I must have disturbed you. As I scrambled to get up, she reached out and grabbed my hand. Her touch was so warm it sent a shiver down my spine. It felt like an electric shock coursing through my body. I turned as stiff as a rusted machine. Seeing me frozen, Eleanor looked puzzled. She sat up, leaning toward me with a worried frown. What's wrong? No, nothing. I'm fine. We both lay back down to try and sleep, but that lingering, tingly sensation refused to fade. By the time I woke up the next morning, Eleanor was already out of bed. Recalling the events of the night made me feel like I wanted to launch myself into outer space out of sheer humiliation. Perhaps because I had bolted upright too quickly, a sudden cramp seized my leg. I couldn't stand steadily, and to make matters worse, I desperately needed to use the bathroom. Right as I reached my breaking point, Eleanor didn't say a word. She rushed over and personally supported me, helping me into the bathroom. Being cared for like that is truly a wonderful feeling. It's just a shame the circumstances were so mortifying. A soft knock came at the door, followed by Eleanor's clear voice. "Dante, are you finished? If you are, come out for breakfast." "Almost done," I replied gently. When I finished tidying myself and stepped out, I was stunned by the lavish spread on the table. "You made all of this?" "I ordered delivery for most of it, but I made the chili fried eggs myself." She gave a bashful smile. "But they're a bit burnt, so maybe you shouldn't eat them." Hearing that actually made me feel relieved. If a CEO was a titan in the boardroom and a master chef, it just wouldn't be fair. Those romance novels are all lies. A woman with a few flaws is a real woman. "So, where did you get the money for breakfast?" She thought for a moment. "I sold all my handbags." How tragic. For a darling of high society like her to be reduced to selling bags just to afford a meal. I didn't even know how to begin comforting her. While we were eating, I asked casually, "By the way, how much did you get for the bag?" "Not much," she replied nonchalantly. "Only about $15,000. Clang. The piece of fried dough in my hand fell into my soy milk, splashing everywhere. "What? 15,000? Are you kidding me?" Ignoring my darkened expression, Eleanor continued to look dejected. "Don't worry, Dante. I won't just be a freeloader. I could find a part-time job." I barely restrained myself from flipping the table. "Part-time job? What kind of part-time job could you possibly do?" Actually, my entire life savings combined aren't even worth that one bag she just sold. Rich people, man. Even bankrupt, she's still leagues ahead of a commoner like me. She'll probably end up working part-time in a gold vault somewhere. While I was drowning in suspicion, Eleanor sighed. "When we divorced, I told you I'd give you half the assets, but you wouldn't take a dime." "Why? Why didn't I take anything?" My brain must have been malfunctioning. Maybe I just felt like I didn't deserve it. When we split, I chose to walk away as empty-handed as the day I arrived. I didn't even take a toothpick from her house. "It's fine," I muttered. "Money is just an external thing, right? You can always make it back." I truly believed that with her intelligence, she could rebuild her empire from scratch. My pity mode was in full swing, and Eleanor looked deeply moved. But a split second later, a ding rang out from my phone. "You have received 15,000 into your Alipay account." I froze, my head filling with question marks. Eleanor said seriously, "Since I'll be eating and living at your place, I figured this should cover the costs." "Is it enough?" My eyes nearly popped out of my head. "Enough? This is enough to keep you stuffed until you burst." And so, Eleanor officially moved in. After breakfast, she took a phone call and prepared to head out. I asked her, "You aren't actually going to do manual labor, are you?" The thought of her, a woman who used to command thousands with a single signature, now out there being bossed around by some stranger, it broke my heart. She already had 15,000. Why push herself so hard? "Are you worried about me?" she asked, her hand on the doorknob. Her eyes sparkled like stars. I shook my head quickly. I'm not worried." A shadow of disappointment crossed her face, but she masked it with a light smile. "I'm going now. Don't bother cooking lunch for me, but can I have your sweet and sour ribs for dinner?" When her grandmother was alive, she loved my sweet and sour ribs. Eleanor used a visit and always managed to steal a few bites. I nodded. "Sure." Inside, I wanted to shout with joy. "Of course you can. You just deposited 15,000 for meal prep. Forget ribs. I'd cook you abalone or Kobe beef if you wanted. But we have to be frugal, right?" I actually wanted to secretly tail her to see what kind of hardship she was enduring, but I didn't want to embarrass her, so I stayed back. It was my day off, so after breakfast, I headed to the wet market. I'm on a first-name basis with most of the vendors there. The butcher, seeing me carefully inspecting the cuts of meat, gave me a cheeky grin. "Buying the good stuff to nourish your lady, yeah?" I paused for a second, then slowly nodded. If she's working hard, she definitely needs some nourishment. With those words, I tacitly admitted that Eleanor was my woman. A small smile played on my lips as I began meticulously selecting the best cuts of meat. I was heading home, lugging heavy bags of groceries, when Leo called. "Hey, Dante, The class president is organizing a reunion. That fake, arrogant prick Kevin is going too. Word is he's bringing his new rich girlfriend just to show off. What's he got to brag about anyway? Your lady is a real deal, certified CEO. I stayed silent for a moment before replying. Leo, I don't think I can make it. Why not? I cover my face in shame. Because I'm divorced. And besides, that CEO is bankrupt. That evening, I prepared a table overflowing with delicious food. When Eleanor arrived home and saw the spread, she showered me with praise. Your cooking skills are truly incredible. It's a waste I didn't become a professional chef, right? I joked. She placed a piece of sweet and sour ribs into my bowl. How could I ever bear to let you work as a chef? The atmosphere suddenly turned still. Since our wedding day, my relationship with Eleanor could be described in one phrase: mutual respect between strangers. Forget physical contact, we never even shared sweet talk. Yet here we were, divorced, and she wasn't holding back at all. I played dumb. Just eat up, okay? After dinner, Eleanor took the initiative to offer to wash the dishes. Initially, I wanted to stop her, but then I thought that if I were too overprotective, she'd start overthinking. So I smiled. All right, I'll leave it to you then. 10 minutes later, my smile vanished. Good grief. My brand new set of dishes had been sacrificed at Eleanor's hands. Looking at the shards scattered across the floor, Eleanor gave a bashful, sheepish laugh. It's okay. I'll buy you a new set. It's fine, it's just dishes, I muttered. We both knelt down at the same time to pick up the broken pieces. But we completely misjudged the distance. Thud! Our foreheads collided with a dull bang. The force knocked me off balance, and I tumbled backward onto the floor. My legs even gave a little involuntary twitch. It was peak humiliation. Are you okay? Eleanor leaned over to help me up. I'm fine. I lied, even though I was literally seeing stars. She reached out and gently rubbed my forehead, her touch incredibly tender. At this proximity, I could see her long, curled eyelashes clearly. Her dark eyes were like the moonlight, reflecting my own image back at me. We were so close I could feel her breath on my skin. Are you really okay? Why is your face so red? There was a bit of red wine in the beef stew. I think I'm a little tipsy. In truth, it wasn't the wine. It was Eleanor's presence that was making me lightheaded. She gave me a faint smile, her gaze steady and probing. Is that so? Then why don't I feel anything? Was she being clever? Did she really have to expose my bluff to be satisfied? What kind of woman was she? Once we finished cleaning the kitchen, I started fussing around, preparing some fruit for after dinner. Eleanor stepped out to take a phone call. I couldn't understand why she had to go outside. It felt unnecessarily mysterious. Was it the first love calling? The thought made my hands slow down as I sliced the apples, a bitter feeling rising in my chest. I was busy imagining a scene where Eleanor and her first love reunited after all these years. A tearful, dramatic homecoming. I didn't even notice her walking back toward me. When she suddenly called my name, I flinched and accidentally sliced my finger. Seeing the blood, Eleanor's expression shifted instantly. She looked as though she'd been struck by a sudden, intense pain herself. She rushed over and grabbed my hand. How could you be so careless? It wasn't that I was careless. It was that she had startled me. But was she actually worried? 10 minutes later, I stared at my finger, which was bandaged so thickly it looked like a giant radish. You really have a skill for bandaging, I remarked. Eleanor looked up at me, her eyes shimmering with genuine concern. Just don't let it get wet for a few days. If there's anything that needs doing, let me handle it. Just rest. Good grief, it was just a tiny nick. Why was she acting like I was about to become a permanent invalid? It's really no big deal, just a small cut. It'll be fine by tomorrow, I insisted. I remembered an old joke and decided to share it. You know, there was once a guy who went to the hospital for a tiny finger injury. The doctor gasped and said, if you had arrived any later, this would have healed on its own. I let out a silly laugh, but the moment I saw the way Eleanor was looking at me, I went dead silent. Her gaze was like 10 pounds of malt syrup, thick, sticky, and incredibly sweet. Inside, my heart was screaming like a panicked groundhog. Oh my God, why did I tell such a pointless joke? Even if Eleanor was now a failed businesswoman, her class and taste hadn't diminished one bit. I lowered my head and murmured an apology. Sorry, that was a stupid joke. Probably wasn't very funny. Coming from your mouth. I thought it was quite nice, she replied. Back when I was taking care of her grandmother, the old lady loved hearing jokes. I used to scour the internet for new ones to tell her. Sometimes Eleanor would come to visit. She used to linger secretly by the door without anyone knowing. Every time her grandmother and I were doubled over laughing, I'd turn around to find her standing there, watching us with a soft smile. In those moments, I would immediately snap out of my laughter and sit up straight. Hello, Miss Eleanor, I'd say formally. She would give a slight nod and walk in. My dear granddaughter, you've arrived. The moment her grandmother saw Eleanor, a joyful smile lit up her weathered face. Thinking the two of them needed some private time to talk, I prepared to excuse myself. But Eleanor called me back. There are no outsiders here, Dante. You don't need to leave. Hearing that, the old lady looked at us with a deeply meaningful gaze. I felt a wave of awkwardness wash over me. What exactly did she mean by no outsiders? After her grandmother fell asleep, I escorted Eleanor out. This was the premier retirement home in the city. Usually, those without significant status or wealth weren't even eligible for a room. Because Eleanor was constantly buried in work and lacked the time to care for her grandmother personally, she had originally hired professional caregivers for the house. However, the old lady felt lonely and chose this place instead. It offered professional nurses, nutritionists, doctors, and even psychological counselors. Most importantly, she had friends to talk to. Though for the most part, I was still the one she talked to. The facility was perched on a hill. The air was crisp, the trees were lush, and it was filled with the sound of birds and the scent of flowers. Just walking along the small paths and taking a deep breath made you feel as if your soul was being cleansed. Eleanor and I walked side by side down a shaded trail. In a moment of silence, she spoke up. Thank you for taking care of my grandmother. I looked down into her cool, steady eyes. My heart suddenly skipped a beat, and I quickly averted my gaze. Why did you suddenly get so tense? She asked. I shook my head immediately. I'm not tense. But in truth, I had no idea why looking at her made my heart hammer against my ribs and my throat go bone dry, leaving me unable to string a coherent sentence together. Perhaps it was because her aura was so overwhelming. I was just an ordinary man. I didn't dare act out of turn in her presence. She gave a light laugh. It's best if you aren't tense. That wasn't the first time I'd seen her smile, but against the backdrop of the blue sky, white clouds, and green trees, that smile possessed a magnetic charm that pierced straight into the depths of my heart. Back in the present, Leo called again. He reminded me that I must bring my wife to the reunion. If not, he threatened to show up at my place with a 40-meter-long blade. Left with no choice, I had to turn to Eleanor for help. After hearing my request, she sat on the sofa, gently tapping her index finger on the coffee table. So, she said softly, you want me to attend your class reunion as your wife? I nodded sheepishly. If it makes you uncomfortable, it's okay. We can. I'll do it, she interrupted. Seeing her agree so easily, I fell silent. She flashed a smile. I can at least help with this. After all, I'm eating your food and living under your roof. I should show some concrete appreciation, shouldn't I? Eating my food and living under my roof. But you've already paid for it. Though to her, 15,000 was probably just a drop in the bucket. However, I'm bankrupt now, Eleanor said with a look of profound sadness. I don't even have a decent outfit to wear. Let's go buy one together. She raised her hand and decided right then and there that today was the day. Wait right now, I asked. Eleanor truly lived up to her reputation as a businesswoman, decisive and efficient. She practically dragged me downstairs. When I saw the Maybach parked at the entrance, I froze. Eleanor held the door open and turned to me. I rented it. This is like going into a business negotiation, she added. If you don't have a good car to make an impression, people won't even give you a second look. So that's how it is. I felt a pang of pity for her. A woman who was once so confident was now forced to humble herself just to scrape her way back up. I'm sorry. I'm not much help. I muttered. At that moment, I felt utterly powerless. If I had even a shred of her talent, couldn't I have been the one supporting her? Eleanor looked surprised for a moment, and then her eyes softened like the gentle spring sun in March. She called out softly, "You dummy." My heart raced, and my breath grew shallow. We arrived at the mall. Eleanor navigated the place with total familiarity, leading me into a high-end bespoke boutique. While she went to change, I stole a glance at the price tags. My heart rate spiked, and my blood pressure shot through the roof. The sales assistant brought over some coffee and looked at me politely. "Please wait a moment, sir. We have magazines here for you to browse. Let me know if you need anything." I grunted a confused acknowledgement. As I sipped the coffee, I mentally calculated my savings. I probably had just enough to buy the cheapest set they had, but it would wipe out years of my hard-earned money in a single second. It pained me just to think about it. How can a single piece of fabric be this expensive? No matter how I looked at it, I couldn't wrap my head around it. While I was lost in my thoughts, Eleanor stepped out. Even the professionally trained sales clerk couldn't hide the shock in her eyes. As for me, I was completely dazed. I just stared at her. Eleanor's graceful silhouette, combined with that unique aura of hers. No matter where she stood, she was always the most radiant person in the crowd. As she walked toward me, I felt my breathing grow heavy and my heart pound. Seeing me in a trance, Eleanor looked at me suspiciously. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, taking a deep breath and patting my face. "It's just a bit hot in here." "Ah." Eleanor narrowed her eyes. "The air conditioning is blasting in here. Please, stop exposing me. I'm just trying to keep a little bit of my dignity." Fortunately, Eleanor caught my drift. She looked at me and asked, "How is this one?" "It's stunning, though the price is less stunning." "Beautiful. Honestly, you look beautiful in everything," I said sincerely, my words coming out smoother than expected. Since Eleanor had made her choice, I summoned every ounce of courage I had to prepare for the payment. But she turned me down with a smile. "I topped up my account here a long time ago and haven't used the balance yet. No need to touch your treasury just yet." The clerk checked the system. "Miss, this gown is 8,000. After the deduction, your account balance is 68,000. Would you like to top up today?" The coffee cup in my hand nearly slipped and hit the floor. 68 million remaining? "No need to top up for now," Eleanor replied calmly. "You have a men's flagship store nearby, don't you?" "Yes, we do, Miss Eleanor," the clerk beamed. Eleanor tapped her chin thoughtfully. "Pick out a nice suit for him." While I was trying on the suit, it felt a bit tight around the chest. I instinctively called out to the clerk, "Could I get a size larger, please?" "Thanks." Just then, someone gently pushed the dressing room door open without saying a word. I turned around to say thank you, only to find Eleanor standing right there. Our noses nearly brushed. We were a mere fraction of an inch away from a kiss. I jumped to the side like a startled monkey. "Why are you here?" "The staff got busy," she said. I looked at her, skeptical. This was a high-end luxury boutique where the customer is king. When a client is changing, staff are required to wait outside. There was no way they'd just wander off. Eleanor must have dismissed them. She stared at me, her eyes shimmering with genuine admiration and affection. "Don't I look good?" I asked. "You look great," she said, as if snapping out of a trance. She nodded softly. "Very handsome. Don't oversell it. You don't have to comfort me. My mom always said I have a 50-50 build. Nothing looks good on me. It's not 50-50, it's a balanced proportion. A perfect man looks good in everything. See? That's the difference when someone actually knows how to talk." I felt properly consoled, but when I asked about the price of the suit, I was ready to give up again. "Forget it. It's way too expensive." The sales clerk wasn't about to let a commission slip away. When a wife buys for her husband, price doesn't matter, right? "Miss Eleanor, shall I?" Eleanor didn't give me a chance to protest. She went straight to settle the bill. On the way back from the mall, Leo called. "Dante, you ready? Tomorrow at 7 p.m., the Grand Hyatt." I glanced at Eleanor as she headed into the bathroom and sighed. For the sake of face, we had spent a fortune today. I gripped the phone and whispered, "Look, Eleanor is bankrupt now, yet she's still going to these lengths to save face for me. I don't know how I'll ever repay her." Leo chuckled. Simple. Once she's finished her shower and climbs into bed next to you, you'll find a way. Did you forget we're already divorced? I shot back. So what? Divorced people get remarried all the time, Leo countered bluntly. You're living together. Near the water, you get the best reflection. A rabbit always eats the grass near its burrow. Just go for it. I was left speechless by his lack of filter. I'm finished. I've prepared the hot water for you two. Eleanor stepped out, drying her hair with a towel. One look at her, and I felt the heat rush to my face. Why was she only wearing a bath towel? Eleanor seemed to notice my awkwardness. She gave a small cough and said, I forgot to bring my pajamas into the bathroom just now. It's fine, it's fine. I blurted out, covering my eyes with my hands, though I couldn't resist peeking through the gaps in my fingers. Go on then. The water will get cold, she said. She didn't call me out on my peeking, naturally carrying herself with a casual, effortless charm. While I was in the shower, Leo's words kept echoing in my head. After spending this time with her, I had to face the truth. I loved Eleanor. It was a feeling I simply couldn't let go of. My only fear was that first love returning from abroad. I was terrified of being abandoned, so I tried to stay proactive. If I had to leave, I wanted to leave with some dignity. But I realized now that when you truly love someone, it's hard to keep your dignity. I wish more than anything that this first love didn't exist. Just as I finished washing up, there was a sudden pop. The power went out. I hadn't even put my clothes on yet. Eleanor's voice drifted from outside the door. The power's out. Are you okay in there? I'm fine, I yelled back, instinctively covering myself. Then I stopped. Wait, I'm a man. What am I afraid of? Besides, there was no way she'd just barge in, right? And even if she did, it was pitch black. I'm so tan she wouldn't see a thing anyway. I exhaled, reaching for my clothes in the dark. But then my foot slipped on the wet tile, and I went down with a painful thud. Hearing the crash, Eleanor's voice was frantic. Dante, what happened? It took me a few seconds to even find my breath. I fell. The door swung open. In the pitch black, her voice sounded right next to me. Dante, are you okay? Where are you hurt? My back and my hip. It hurts so much. I sucked in a sharp breath. I felt her drape a bathrobe over me. Even in the darkness, the scent of her skin drifted into my lungs. We shared the same body wash, and the familiarity of it felt magical. Accidentally, her fingertips brushed against my hip. I shuddered. She murmured an apology, her voice thick with concern, and then I felt a soft, fleeting kiss pressed against the spot where it hurt. Soon after, the ambulance arrived. The paramedics loaded me onto the stretcher, and Eleanor climbed in with me. Eleanor, I whispered, tell me the truth. Am I going to be paralyzed? I had hit the floor so hard I felt numb from the waist down. The thought of spending the rest of my life in a wheelchair, unable to take care of myself, made my eyes sting. Am I going to be a cripple? What is a farmer supposed to do if he can't walk? Eleanor gripped my hand, her voice a soothing balm. Don't worry, you're going to be fine. And even if something happens, I'll take care of you for the rest of your life. Do you really mean that? When have I ever broken a promise to you? I thought about it for a second, then slowly pulled my hand away. No, I don't want to be a burden to you. The paramedic sitting beside us couldn't help but chuckle. Relax, young man. You're going to be just fine. After a series of tests, the doctor confirmed that nothing was broken. I breathed a massive sigh of relief. No wheelchair for me. Do you still want to go to the reunion tomorrow? Eleanor asked, still looking worried. We can cancel it. No, we're going. I'm fine, I insisted. If I don't show up, Leo really will tear me apart. That guy never makes empty threats. Eleanor nodded. All right, tomorrow. I promise I'll make sure you keep your head held high. The next day, Eleanor had some business to attend to, so she was running a bit late. With Leo blowing on my phone every 5 minutes, I decided to head over first. It was easy enough to just grab a taxi. The moment I stepped into the hotel, a mocking voice rang out. Well, if it isn't Dante. You actually look decent today. But this suit on a guy like you. Leo glared at the speaker. What about it, Kevin? Kevin curled his lip into a sneer. It feels like a waste of good fabric. Leo looked ready to throw a punch, but I held him back. Don't bother, I muttered. Don't argue with an idiot. My comment made Leo take a deep breath. I still want to teach this moron a lesson, he growled. I knew Leo was just looking out for me. Kevin and I had been classmates in high school. Back then, relying on his family's money, he was a relentless bully. I couldn't stand it and spoke up to protect others, which naturally made me his primary target. If it hadn't been for Leo, who practiced Taekwondo, protecting me, my 3 years of high school would have been a nightmare. Thinking back on those days still made my blood boil. But what could I do now? Whoa, whose black car is that? It's insane. We turned toward the shouting and saw a sleek, pitch-black supercar, one I had never even seen in person, slowly gliding toward us. Leo was practically vibrating with excitement. My God, Dante, isn't that the car I sent you a photo of the other day? There's only one of these in the entire world. This is incredible. I wonder who the owner is. As soon as the words left his mouth, the car came to a halt. The door swung open, and a slender, elegant figure stepped out. Both Leo and I froze in shock. It was Eleanor. She walked straight up to me, a gentle smile gracing her lips. Have you already started the reunion? Around us, the crowd erupted in whispers of awe and disbelief. Kevin's face turned a visible shade of sour. I pulled Eleanor aside and whispered urgently, "It's just a class reunion. Where did you rent this? If this isn't a replica, it's the only one of its kind on Earth." "You just worry about the food today," she said, softly taking my hand. "Let me handle everything else." Throughout the dinner, I was on edge. Kevin was relentlessly targeting Eleanor. Since she was a famous entrepreneur, everyone in the room knew who she was. And Kevin, true to his loose-lipped nature, began mocking her once he realized she was bankrupt. His tone was dripping with sarcasm. Well, isn't this the great CEO of the Sterling Group? Though, I suppose calling you so isn't quite accurate anymore, is it? Before I could even process the insult, Leo had reached his limit. Kevin, if you don't want that mouth of yours anymore, feel free to donate it to someone who actually needs one. Though with a filthy trap like yours, who would even take it? I cheered silently in my head. Well said, Leo. Kevin let out a cold snort. It's embarrassing just to sit at the same table as you people. It's a total blow to my social standing. I couldn't take it anymore and shot back. Status isn't measured by a $10,000 suit or a $100,000 watch. It's measured by the respect you show others. It's because of people like you that we don't want to sit at this table in the first place. With that, I grabbed Leo with my left hand and Eleanor with my right, preparing to walk out. I had been too careless. I should never have come to this reunion and forced Eleanor to endure such humiliation alongside me. What did you just say? Kevin, having never been insulted like this before, instinctively grabbed a wine bottle from the table, intending to hurl it at me. The pain I expected never came. I opened my eyes to see Eleanor standing firmly in front of me, having intercepted the attack. Her beautiful face was cold as ice, her gaze cutting through Kevin like a blade. "You actually dare to try and harm someone?" she asked, her voice lethal. Leo finally reacted, his rage boiling over as he rolled up his sleeves. "If I don't send you to the ER today, I'm not a man." I quickly held Leo back. If a real fight broke out, with Kevin's talent for twisting the truth, we'd never hear the end of it. Besides, his father was a man of significant influence. That's the only reason he dared to be this arrogant. "What is going on here?" A familiar voice rang out. We all turned at once. Standing there was an incredibly glamorous woman. I'd seen her on TV before. She was a well-known socialite from a wealthy family. "Honey, they're bullying me." Kevin immediately put on a pathetic face and ran to grab the woman's hand. He looked at the three of us with a smug, triumphant smirk. "Who's bullying whom?" Leo countered, refusing to back down. The woman looked at Eleanor, and her face went pale instantly. "And Miss Sterling." Eleanor looked at her coldly. "Is this your boyfriend?" The woman hesitated, then gave a slow nod. "Very well." Eleanor let out a chilling laugh. "Kevin, expect a lawsuit. And as for you, I think we need to reconsider our current business partnership." Before anyone could blink, Eleanor stepped right up to Kevin and delivered a resounding slap across his face. The entire room went dead silent. Leo let out a gasp of shock, and I stood there completely stunned. Eleanor had always been a woman of perfect composure and restraint. She never acted out like this. But today, she had broken every one of her rules. Kevin clutched his face, his eyes wide with disbelief. You dare to hit me? Eleanor pulled out a tissue and calmly wiped her hands. Her sharp gaze pierced right through him. I have never laid a hand on anyone in my life, but today, I'm making an exception. Every bit of misery you ever caused Dante, I am paying it back in full. Leo let out an ecstatic cheer. Miss Sterling, that was legendary. Your aura is off the charts. Eleanor gave him a small smile in return, then stepped toward me. She took my hand, her expression softening instantly into something tender. The food here is terrible, she murmured. Let's go eat somewhere else. I stood there, dazed, let her lead me out. The socialite who had been standing by silently finally snapped out of her trance and tried to run after us. Miss Sterling, please. Eleanor turned back, a cold, warning smirk on her face. Take one more step, and you'll have to live with the consequences. Once we were safely inside the car, the reality of the situation finally hit me. I turned to her, hesitating. Why did she call you CEO? I thought you were bankrupt, yet she acted so respectful. That's not how people treat someone who's lost everything. Eleanor looked at me for a long time, then let out a deep, heavy sigh. Dante, the truth is, there's something I've been keeping from you. I was afraid you'd be angry, so I didn't dare say anything. What is it? I asked. It's true that I went bankrupt, she began tentatively. But I am also the primary heiress to the Sterling family dynasty. My mind went into a complete whirl. I was flooded with questions as she continued to explain. I left home early to be independent, to build my own company from the ground up. I succeeded, and I built an empire. But my father was never satisfied. He wanted me to return and take over the family business. So he secretly pulled strings behind the scenes to sabotage me. He forced my company into bankruptcy just to make me crawl back to him. This time, I didn't want to hide it from you anymore. She looked down, her voice trembling slightly. It's just that you wanted the divorce. I didn't know how else to show you how I felt. The woman who, moments ago, had looked like a powerful queen was now bowing her head in apology, looking incredibly vulnerable. I'm sorry. If you're angry, you can blame me, yell at me. Anything. I gritted my teeth. The thing I hate most in this world is being lied to. She stiffened, a flicker of panic crossing her eyes. I'm so sorry, Dante, but I continued. You just helped me get my revenge. And honestly, it felt amazing. So, let's just call it even. Eleanor let out a breath of pure relief and laughed. I had no idea. I wanted to hit that guy for years. I just never had the guts. Thank you for giving me that slap by proxy. I feel so much better now. Eleanor reached out, her finger tracing small, playful circles on my chest. So, it turns out my husband is the type to hold a grudge. I guess I'll have to be careful from now on. I wouldn't dare provoke you. I suddenly became aware of her intimate gestures. My ears turned crimson as I stammered. Who is your husband? Besides, don't you have that first love who's about to return to the country? First love? What first love? Eleanor knit her brows slightly. I don't have a first love. She gave a light cough and lowered her head. Seeing my bewildered expression, she let out a sigh. I really don't have any first love. I have no idea why you imagine that. The first time in my life I've ever fallen for a man was you. I swallowed hard and asked, when exactly did you fall for me? It was that time I went to visit my grandmother, Eleanor replied, her smile revealing her pearly white teeth. You said things that truly moved me. She reached into her handbag and pulled out a small box. Inside was a pair of rings. She looked at me with a gaze full of sincerity. Dante, do you want to marry me again? I hesitated, but we aren't a match. Last time, I only agreed to fulfill your grandmother's wish. Eleanor's eyes lit up with an intense passion. I couldn't find the words to respond because she used her actions to silence my reply. Slowly, she pulled back, her eyes as clear as water. If you don't agree, I'll just have to live in solitude for the rest of my life. That's a bit extreme, isn't it? Eleanor really knew how to play her hand. Fine, I won't force you, she said. Let me know when you've thought it through. But that very night, hey, Didn't you say you'd wait for me to think it through? Why are you crawling into my bed in the middle of the night? Eleanor put on an innocent face. I saw a cockroach. I grabbed a slipper and headed for the living room. Where? Eleanor rested her hand on her forehead. I'm not going to do anything to you. If you want, we could just put the pillow in the middle again. I don't trust you one bit, babe. But right then, a huge cockroach scurried out. I whacked it dead with my slipper. Eleanor looked at me triumphantly. See? I wasn't lying to you. That night, Eleanor and I slept in the same bed once more. The long pillow remained between us as a barrier. Sweet dreams, Eleanor said, her eyes fixed on me. I hope you have beautiful dreams. Her eyes were practically glowing. I hurriedly pulled my legs back, turned away, and muttered good night. The next morning, when I woke up, I discovered I was tightly hugging Eleanor again. Panicked, I scrambled out of bed instantly. Eleanor looked at me with an air of pure innocence. Don't tell me you aren't planning to take responsibility for me. Good grief, she was clever. Half a year later, Eleanor and I held our wedding. I had initially worried that her parents would never accept me. On the contrary, they liked me quite a lot. Eleanor also agreed to return and inherit the family business because she claimed she needed to make money to support her husband. That night, after we returned home, I said to her, "You don't have to sacrifice yourself for me. If you don't want to go back to that life, I can live frugally. I'll work twice as hard to provide for us." I was truly worried she would be miserable. "You dummy," she whispered, gently stroking my cheek. "I'm doing this gladly for you." A year later, Eleanor gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. Our entire family was bathed in happiness. Eleanor took my hand and said, "Hubby, thank you for staying by my side." I squeezed her hand tightly. "I'm the one who should be thanking you. Have you called the kids yet?" I went blank for a second. I had forgotten that once the twins turned 1 month old, Eleanor had whisked me away to a small island to relax. However, I still made sure to video call the babies every single day. Eventually, Eleanor got a little pouty. "Seriously, Dante, who is more important to you, me or the kids?" I felt a wave of bashfulness. Eleanor was actually jealous of her own children. I cupped her face in my hands. "You and the children are equally important. You're all the people I love most in this world. But I only have one you in this life." I decided it was time to tell her the truth. To be honest, the very first time I saw you, I was completely captivated. I had even started thinking of names for our future children back then.